In the vast labyrinth of the human soul, few have explored its depths with the vision and clarity of Carl Jung. This renowned Swiss psychologist and philosopher dedicated his life to understanding the mysteries of the mind and spirit, illuminating the path toward what he called the self, the totality of our being. In this article, we will delve into Jung's perspective on how to connect with our higher self, that divine and transcendent part that resides within each of us. Through concepts like the collective unconscious, archetypes, and the process of individuation, we will uncover the essential tools to achieve a deeper level of awareness and align with our highest essence. Prepare for a transformative journey to the core of your being. For Carl Jung, the higher self represents the purest and deepest connection to our spiritual core, which goes beyond the changing identities conditioned by society. Unlike the ego, which responds to the demands and expectations of the external world, the higher self acts as a stable source of wisdom and authenticity. While the ego concerns itself with recognition, success, and comfort, the higher self seeks truth, purpose, and spiritual fulfillment. This concept suggests that we all carry within us a kind of inner guide that is unaffected by our transient experiences or emotions. Jung believed that this dimension of being is not a mere reflection of our conscious thoughts or desires, but an autonomous inner entity, a kind of wise guardian looking out for our spiritual and psychological well-being. According to Jung, connecting with the higher self involves a transformation of the self in which we leave behind the superficial and embrace the essential. However, this process is not easy. It involves breaking away from patterns of behavior, beliefs, and attachments. By relinquishing what we thought we were and what we needed, we make space for a more authentic truth that resides deep within. The higher self, in Jung's thought, is an invaluable resource for those seeking a higher purpose. It is not the product of our intellect or something that can be attained through logic or rational knowledge. Accessing it requires a willingness to engage in introspection and self-discovery. In this sense, the higher self is also a compass, a signal that guides us when we feel lost or trapped in the demands of daily life. The connection to this part of ourselves can manifest as intuitions, sudden feelings of clarity, or moments of inexplicable peace, especially in times of solitude or deep contemplation. This journey toward the higher self not only transforms our relationship with ourselves, but also with the world. By connecting with our spiritual core, we discover a motivation and sense of peace that do not depend on external circumstances. This state of awareness makes us less vulnerable to external influences and pressures, allowing us to live with a profound integrity that is not shaken by adversity or rejection. For Jung, the higher self is not a goal we achieve once and for all. It is an ongoing relationship that we cultivate over time, a relationship that helps us grow and reveals ever more layers of our own truth. Archetypes are, in Jung's words, primordial images that represent universal patterns of behavior and experience shared by humanity. They are ancestral symbols that reside in the collective unconscious and guide our perceptions, our decisions, and our relationship with the world. Jung asserts that these archetypes act as internal maps, orienting us in our process of self-discovery and ultimately in our access to the higher self. Among the archetypes, some, like the warrior, the hero, and especially the wise old man or inner teacher, are fundamental for connecting with our deeper spirituality. The wise old man symbolizes a profound and ancestral wisdom that resides in all of us and reveals itself in moments of transformation. For Jung, archetypes are manifestations that emerge through our dreams, fantasies, art, and even in synchronistic experiences. When we connect with a specific archetype, we access a part of ourselves that transcends time and space, feeling and experiencing something that is universally human. These archetypes function as doors that connect us to the higher self because they represent aspects of our being that we do not always recognize, but that act within us as powerful forces influencing our decisions, our perception of life, and our purposes. Each archetype embodies a role that, when integrated into ourselves, makes us more whole and allows us to approach the totality of our being. The manifestation of archetypes is varied and occurs in mysterious ways, but their influence is undeniable. For example, in dreams, the hero archetype may emerge when we need courage to face a personal challenge, while the wise old man may appear in moments of spiritual searching, or when confronting ethical dilemmas, guiding us toward answers that the ego cannot provide. These archetypes are not mere fragments of the imagination. They are living forces that emerge from the collective unconscious to guide us and help us grow spiritually. Each of them represents an aspect of the journey toward the higher self, and by recognizing them, we acknowledge the vastness of our own psyche. The value of archetypes, then, is that they not only reveal aspects of our own personality, but also open us to a greater reality, a reality that connects all human beings across time and space. By working with them, we cease to see ourselves as isolated individuals and begin to recognize ourselves as part of a universal network, sharing common experiences. This understanding is essential in the process of reaching the higher self, as it allows us to perceive life from a perspective of unity and wholeness. The concept of the shadow is central to Jungian psychology and represents all those parts of our personality that we reject, deny, or repress because they do not fit the idealized image we want to project to the world. The shadow is not inherently evil, but it can become dangerous when we ignore or repress it, manifesting in impulsive behaviors, projections onto others, and even feelings of anger, envy, or frustration. For Jung, the shadow is the guardian of the gateway to the higher self, as its integration is an essential step toward genuine and profound self-knowledge. Only by confronting it can we understand who we are in our entirety and attain a state of inner peace. The shadow not only contains our darkest impulses, but also talents and qualities that we did not develop due to fear or shame. For example, a person who emotionally represses may find in their shadow a great sensitivity that they do not allow themselves to express. Another individual struggling with insecurity may discover a repressed courage waiting to be recognized. Jung proposes that in order to connect with the higher self, it is necessary to view the shadow as an integral part of ourselves and not as an enemy. By doing so, we are willing to confront our own contradictions, shedding layers of fear and judgment that have limited us. The process of integrating the shadow is complex and often painful, as it forces us to face uncomfortable emotions and thoughts, reevaluate our beliefs, and let go of defenses. For Jung, this confrontation is inevitable if we wish to reach the higher self. By accepting the shadow, we free ourselves from the emotional burden of maintaining a perfect image before others and before ourselves. This process not only gives us a sense of freedom, but also paves the way for a fuller and more authentic life. Once we integrate the shadow, our perspective changes, and the energies we previously used to hide it now transform into creativity, wisdom, and strength. The shadow is both an obstacle and an ally on the path to the higher self. By reconciling with it, we begin to live from a place of integrity and honesty, capable of seeing ourselves and others with compassion and empathy. This is a crucial step in connecting with our spiritual core, as it is only by fully accepting ourselves with both light and shadow that we can live from the center of our being. Active imagination is a central tool in therapeutic practice and personal development, according to Jung. This technique, created to establish a direct channel of communication between the conscious and the unconscious, is essentially a meditative process in which the mind is invited to express its images, symbols, and archetypes without filters. The goal is to allow the unconscious to speak without restrictions, letting emerge internal figures that represent unexplored or repressed aspects of the psyche. This technique is a pathway to the higher self, because it allows one to see beyond the layers of the ego and defenses, accessing a deep and transformative inner self. In the practice of active imagination, Jung suggests that it is crucial to adopt an open, non-critical stance, allowing internal images to manifest uncensored. This openness is key, as any conscious judgment can block or distort the flow of content from the unconscious. Once the images emerge, the practitioner should try to interact with them, asking questions, engaging in dialogue, or simply observing. Thus, the process becomes a kind of conversation with the soul, where each symbol, word, or figure represents a facet of the psyche that has something significant to communicate. Active imagination is especially valuable because it allows individuals to discover answers and truths that they could not reach through logical thinking alone. During the experience, figures such as spiritual guides, symbolic animals, or characters representing forgotten aspects of childhood commonly emerge. These figures offer wisdom and guidance on personal issues or internal dilemmas, facilitating direct access to the higher self, which manifests through these images as a wise and protective force. In addition to promoting self-knowledge, active imagination allows for the release of emotions and unconscious blockages. In each session, fears, traumas, or repressed desires may arise, and by giving them space to express themselves, the person can free themselves from accumulated tensions, gaining emotional and mental clarity. By accepting and listening to what the unconscious wants to express, a fundamental barrier separating us from our authenticity and inner peace is removed. This process results in a greater integration of the psyche, where the ego, instead of oppressing or controlling, learns to coexist with the deeper elements of the soul. For Jung, active imagination is not simply a creative exercise, but a sacred ritual, an introspective practice that reveals unknown aspects of ourselves. As the internal dialogue strengthens, the higher self becomes a stable presence that guides the practitioner's life, granting them wisdom and serenity to face challenges. This connection, then, transforms not only our relationship with our mind, but also with external reality, as we manage to act from a place of congruence with our essence. The power of active imagination lies in its ability to go beyond words and connect directly with the symbolic language of the soul. In the end, this method not only provides us with answers, but also profoundly changes us, making us more integrated, compassionate beings at peace with every aspect of our existence. In this sense, active imagination is an invaluable doorway to the higher self, revealing the richness and complexity of our own psyche and helping us live with purpose and authenticity. The collective unconscious is one of Jung's most innovative concepts and represents a layer of the psyche that is not individual but universal, shared by all humanity. This collective unconscious is, in essence, an ancestral memory, a structure that contains the experiences, symbols, and archetypes that have defined human life throughout the millennia. Jung saw the collective unconscious not only as a psychological resource, but also as a source of wisdom and spiritual connection that each of us can explore to find the higher self. Through this unconscious, not only the challenges we face in life are reflected, but also the answers and paths that other generations have found. The idea that we share a collective memory may sound abstract, but its influence on our daily lives is tangible. Jung discovered that certain images and archetypes, such as the hero, the wise man, the mother, and the shadow, appear in different cultures and times as symbols of universal experiences. This collective unconscious is what makes ancient symbols and stories resonate with us, even without understanding their meanings rationally. For Jung, every time we connect with these symbols, we activate a deep connection with the collective unconscious and ultimately with the higher self. This bond offers us the possibility of accessing ancestral wisdom that responds to our deepest questions, doubts, and aspirations. Exploring the collective unconscious reminds us that our problems and aspirations are not just our own. Personal struggles and desires for meaning and connection are shared by all human beings. This knowledge provides us with a broader and more comforting perspective on our existence. By relating to the collective unconscious, we stop seeing ourselves as isolated individuals and begin to understand ourselves as participants in a much broader and ancient human network. This understanding helps us disidentify from a global human experience, a crucial step toward the higher self. The dreams and symbols that emerge from the collective unconscious possess a profound and luminous character, which Jung calls the experience of the sacred. These symbols are not simply manifestations of the mind, they are reflections of humanity's spiritual dimension. By learning to recognize and work with these manifestations, we cultivate a more intimate and real relationship with the higher self, which manifests in our lives through the wisdom and peace we obtain from this connection. This process is not only personal, but also enriches society, as individuals who connect with their higher self through the collective unconscious become more aware of their responsibility toward the whole, acting with compassion and solidarity. Ultimately, the collective unconscious not only connects us with the higher self, but also with humanity, opening us to a life in harmony with others and the universe. For Carl Jung, dreams are one of the most direct gateways to the higher self, functioning as messengers of the unconscious. While we sleep, the ego diminishes its influence, and the unconscious has the freedom to communicate symbolically ideas and emotions without the censorship of the rational mind. Jung observed that in dreams, symbols and archetypes unfold that reflect not only our current psychological state, but also desires and warnings from a higher wisdom that urges us toward a more balanced and conscious life. This higher self communicates with us through images and situations that, although they may seem meaningless at first glance, actually hold profound relevance for our inner development. Dreams are not simply a repetition of past experiences. Rather, in the Jungian framework, they have a creative and transformative function. A dream may reveal unconscious fears, destructive behavior patterns, or conversely, provide encouragement during times of crisis. Through dream analysis, we can decipher key messages about our relationships, our decisions, and our quest for purpose, revealing internal truths that the conscious ego overlooks or refuses to accept. For Jung, this nocturnal wisdom comes from the higher self, which seeks to guide us towards self-acceptance and wholeness by showing us aspects of ourselves that we need to integrate. The process of interpreting a dream, according to Jung, is a careful exercise that requires openness to symbols without imposing preconceived meanings on them. Each symbol carries weight and personal significance, even as it represents universal archetypes. For example, a river in a dream may symbolize the flow of emotions or the need for change, while a snake may represent both transformation and fear of the unknown. As we learn to engage in dialogue with our dreams and decipher these symbols, we become more aware of our internal needs and begin to listen to the higher self that guides us subtly yet persistently. Dreams are particularly useful during times of crisis or transition when we are undergoing profound changes in life. Jung observed that during these moments, dream imagery often becomes clearer and more archetypal, suggesting a path forward or revealing hidden aspects of our relationships and decisions. For instance, during a breakup, a dream showing us walking through a dark forest might symbolize the pain of detachment, but also the path toward clarity and emotional renewal. In this sense, dreams become healing tools, allowing us to access the wisdom of our higher self, which comprehends the spiritual and emotional context of our experiences beyond what the conscious ego can grasp. For Jung, dreams also have an anticipatory dimension. They can offer us hints or warnings about future events, as the unconscious processes more information than we consciously perceive. These dreams should not be interpreted as literal prophecies, but rather as indications of where we are headed emotionally and psychologically. For example, a dream that portrays conflict or chaos might signal that we are experiencing internal tensions that, if unresolved, could manifest as external problems. In this context, the higher self alerts us to paths we need to reconsider, and by listening to and acting on these messages, we align our decisions with our internal purpose. The practice of keeping a dream journal is a powerful tool on the path to the higher self. Writing down our dreams, reviewing them, and observing patterns helps us understand the language of the unconscious, allowing us to see the relationships and recurring themes in our lives. This practice, while simple, cultivates a continuous relationship with our inner wisdom and teaches us to view each experience, whether pleasurable or painful, as an integral part of our journey toward wholeness. Consistency in dream interpretation opens us to receive more messages from our higher self, whose voice becomes clear and firm as we trust its signals. In summary, dreams provide us with direct access to the higher self, revealing truths that the intellect cannot perceive and guiding us in moments of doubt and transformation. By interpreting and valuing them, we attune ourselves to our internal purpose and live in deep connection with our true selves. Synchronicity is a fascinating concept that Jung developed to explain significant coincidences that lack a direct causal connection but hold deep meaning for those who experience them. This phenomenon reveals a mysterious connection between the human psyche and the external world, suggesting that life is not a series of random events, but a network of symbolic and meaningful relationships. For Jung, these synchronicities are winks from the higher self, signals from the universe indicating that we are on the right path, or that we need to adjust our direction to better align with our internal purpose. A typical example of synchronicity might be thinking intensely about someone and receiving a call from them at that very moment. Another example could be finding a book or article that answers a question that has been on our mind. These experiences may seem trivial, but when they occur at crucial moments in our lives, they can provide a sense of guidance and comfort, giving us the impression of being guided by a higher force. Synchronicity, then, shows us that there is something beyond logic and causality in life, a mysterious order in which internal and external experiences align at key moments to provide clarity and purpose. Jung noted that synchronicity tends to occur especially in times of crisis, transformation, and growth. These events often awaken our unconscious, creating a state in which we are more receptive to symbols and coincidences. During a period of change, it is common for us to experience more synchronistic events that confirm or redirect us on our path. For example, a person going through a period of depression may begin to notice symbols of hope and rebirth in their environment, such as frequently seeing butterflies, which symbolize transformation and resilience. These experiences are perceived as signs from the higher self, seeking to lift us above suffering and remind us that change and overcoming obstacles are possible. Synchronicity also reveals the principle of unity that underlies all creation. When we experience significant synchronicity, we feel that the external world and our inner being are in tune, as if everything is part of an intelligent design. This principle of unity suggests that each of us is connected to a greater whole and that the higher self is both an internal entity and a link to the essence of the universe. Thus, synchronicity is not only a personal message, but an experience of communion with life itself, reminding us that we are not alone and that our existence holds broader significance. By paying attention to synchronicities, we develop a greater sensitivity to the signals of the universe and learn to trust in the guidance of the higher self. This relationship is not superstitious or magical. It is a way of living with a profound awareness of the interconnections that surround us, activated when we are in harmony with our purpose. For Jung, observing and reflecting on synchronicity is a spiritual practice that allows us to stop seeking answers solely in reason and to open ourselves to the wisdom of the higher self. This openness generates a sense of peace and purpose within us, as we feel aligned with a destiny that transcends our individual choices. Ultimately, synchronicity invites us to live with openness and curiosity. When we cease to see life as a series of disconnected events and begin to recognize the value of each meaningful experience, we become more attuned to the signals of the higher self and start to see our lives as a tapestry of interconnected meanings. This perspective transforms us, gives us purpose, and helps us act with confidence, guided by a direct connection to the wisdom of the universe. The journey of individuation is one of the pillars of Jung's psychology and represents the process of becoming a complete individual, where each facet of the psyche is integrated in harmony. Unlike an approach that seeks only external success, individuation involves delving into oneself, discovering and embracing both the light and dark parts. For Jung, this journey is not only a personal goal, but a universal necessity. Every human being, consciously or unconsciously, aspires to wholeness and integration of their being. This process is, in essence, a path toward the higher self, which represents the most authentic and fulfilled version of ourselves. Individuation begins with a calling, a moment in life when the ego starts to question its role, limits, and purposes. It is common for this calling to emerge in the form of a crisis. It could be a loss, a radical change, or even depression, prompting us to look inward and reconsider our identity. At this point, the ego, which has been the dominant part of our personality, realizes it cannot sustain itself alone and needs to open up to deeper dimensions of the psyche, to energies and knowledge found in the unconscious. This is the first step toward individuation, the recognition that we are more than our achievements, our social roles, and our conscious desires. Once we embark on this path, the journey of individuation demands that we confront the various parts of our psyche, each represented by internal figures and archetypes that need to be heard and integrated. For example, we may find within ourselves a warrior seeking protection, an inner child demanding care and nurturing, or a creative muse inspiring us. The process of individuation consists of recognizing, accepting, and understanding the value of each of these parts, without allowing them to dominate our lives, but also without suppressing them. Thus, each archetype becomes a resource that strengthens our higher self. An essential characteristic of individuation is the integration of the shadow, the hidden and repressed part of our personality that Jung considered fundamental to achieving wholeness. The shadow, with its qualities that might seem negative, is actually a source of authenticity and power. By integrating it, we cease to view life in polarized terms as a struggle between good and evil, and understand that we all possess both light and dark aspects. This act of acceptance is essential for connecting with the higher self, as it frees us from judgments and allows us to see the world and ourselves from a more compassionate and unified perspective. Individuation also manifests in our relationships with others. As we progress on this path, our relationships change, and we become more authentic and less dependent on external approval. We no longer seek validation in relationships. Instead, we experience a genuine and profound connection with others. This transformation in our relationships reflects our connection to the higher self, allowing us to see others as fellow travelers rather than mere projections of our needs and fears. We learn to respect their individuality and to give and receive unconditionally. As we integrate all these aspects of the psyche, we reach a state of peace and authenticity in which our higher self manifests. At this point, we stop acting out of habit or fear, and our decisions reflect our deepest purpose. Life becomes an expression of our inner truth, and our actions flow from a place of integrity and self-knowledge. Individuation is ultimately the act of living in harmony with who we are at our essence, and this state leads us to a peace and fulfillment that does not depend on external circumstances, but rather on internal alignment with the higher self. Jung viewed individuation not only as a psychological process, but as a spiritual task, a kind of heroic journey that each individual is called to undertake. It is not about reaching a final goal at some point in life, but rather a constant process of discovery and evolution. This journey is neither easy nor linear. It involves ups and downs, moments of clarity and periods of doubt. But it is a path that leads to profound realization, a life lived from the center of our being, where every experience, every relationship, and every decision holds purpose and meaning. Jung found in alchemy a powerful metaphor for the process of psychological and spiritual transformation, in which the lead of our limitations is turned into the gold of personal fulfillment. For the ancient alchemists, transforming lead into gold was not merely a chemical process, but a symbol of purification and spiritual development. Jung, fascinated by this analogy, saw in alchemy a parallel to the inner journey toward the higher self, where the psyche undergoes a profound transformation as negative or immature aspects are integrated and become wisdom and compassion. This alchemical process begins with the nigredo, or darkening, a phase of confusion, loss, and suffering in which our illusions and attachments are questioned. In this stage, repressed emotions, fears, and insecurities emerge to the surface, forcing us to confront them and to challenge the mental structures upon which we have built our identity. Jung believed that this stage was fundamental to opening ourselves to a new perspective, as by facing internal chaos, we relinquish illusions and prepare for transformation. This is the first step toward the higher self, because it allows us to free ourselves from masks and false beliefs. Following the nigredo is the phase of albedo, or whitening, in which we begin to see clarity and purity in our being, a phase of purification where emotions stabilize and the mind calms. Here, the individual starts to understand their emotions and view their experiences from a broader, more compassionate perspective. This clarity leads us to a point where we begin to connect with inner peace, preparing us for the final stage of alchemy, the rubedo, or reddening. In this final phase, the psyche has integrated its dark and light aspects, reaching a state of internal communion where the higher self manifests without interference. Jung saw alchemy as a practical guide to transformation, as each of its stages can be applied to inner growth. By learning to observe our emotions and thoughts without judgment, and to transform the energy of our repressed fears and desires, the alchemical process allows us to refine our character, elevate our consciousness, and become an authentic and complete version of ourselves. This transformation is what Jung considered the realization of the higher self, symbolizing the state of enlightenment in which the psyche aligns with its highest purpose. Alchemy also involves a process of integrating opposites, one of the keys to achieving the higher self. In the psyche, opposites manifest as internal tensions between reason and emotion, the ego and the unconscious, good and evil. The alchemical process teaches us that these opposites should not be eliminated, but rather understood and reconciled. By integrating opposites, we experience an internal unity that transcends duality and allows us to live in peace. Therefore, alchemy is not only a process of personal transformation, but a reconciliation of our dual nature that enables the higher self to express itself in all its potential. In Jung's view, alchemy represents a profound transformation of the psyche that reflects the human desire to attain wholeness. By committing to this process, we live in a state of creativity and peace, where every aspect of our lives becomes an expression of our higher self. The ultimate purpose of Carl Jung's philosophy is not only to understand the elements that compose the psyche, but to achieve a deep integration that allows us to live from the most authentic core of our being, the higher self. This integration, this moment of being oneself, represents the culmination of the inner journey toward individuation, in which we have explored every corner of our minds, faced the shadow, reconciled internal opposites, and learned to listen to the messages of our unconscious through dreams, archetypes, and synchronicities. The final integration is not simply a state of self-awareness, but a way of life in which every decision, every action, and every relationship reflects our deep purpose and inner truth. To become oneself, we must release the external influences that have shaped our identity and diverted our sense of purpose. This means shedding the expectations of society, the beliefs imposed by family, and the constant desire for external validation. This process of liberation is neither quick nor easy, as it involves revisiting and questioning our motivations, our goals, and our relationships. Honesty with oneself is fundamental. Being oneself means living in coherence with our internal values, even if that entails facing conflicts or losing the approval of others. True integration requires the courage to let go of the superficial and cling to the authentic. As we progress on this path, an emotional transformation occurs. We stop experiencing emotions in a fragmented or reactive way and begin to live in a state of serenity. It is not that life becomes free of challenges or problems. Rather, our relationship with external events changes radically. Upon reaching this integration, the higher self manifests as a constant source of peace and strength, capable of sustaining us in times of adversity. Our perspective also shifts. We begin to see each experience as an opportunity to learn, and every person in our lives as a reflection of internal aspects that we can explore and understand. The final integration also changes how we relate to the world and to others. By living from the higher self, our relationships cease to be based on needs or dependencies and transform into genuine connections, where we respect the authenticity of the other and share from a place of love and empathy. In this state, relationships become spaces for growth and mutual support, where both parties contribute to each other's evolution. This change is particularly evident in family, romantic, and friendship relationships, which transform into spiritual alliances where everyone seeks the common good and personal development. By living from authenticity, every action, no matter how small, becomes an expression of our essential being. This internal integrity is reflected in everything we do, in our work, in our relationships, in how we face challenges, and in our contributions to the community. Jung explains that the higher self is the part of us that longs to make a contribution to the world, and upon achieving final integration, we feel a deep desire to share what we have learned and to serve others. In this sense, the journey toward oneself is not only a process of self-discovery, but an act of service to humanity, where our inner light can illuminate the path for others. For Jung, final integration is not a fixed state, but a continuous process. There are always new layers of the psyche to discover, new challenges to face, and new opportunities to grow. Living in connection with the higher self entails a commitment to self-knowledge and constant evolution, as each stage of life brings new lessons and challenges. In this sense, final integration is not the end of the journey, but a step toward a fuller and more conscious life, where we are at peace with ourselves and in harmony with the universe. True integration is ultimately the ability to be completely oneself, to live each moment with presence, and to embrace every aspect of our lives as part of a meaningful whole. In Carl Jung's philosophy, The path to the higher self is a transformative journey that invites us to explore every facet of our psyche, confront our fears, and integrate our light and shadow into a coherent and authentic whole. Jung did not see this process as a simple quest for happiness or success, but as a spiritual and psychological mission of immense significance, where every human being has the opportunity to discover their true purpose and contribute to the collective well-being from their authenticity. Upon reaching this state, we live in deep connection with ourselves, acting not from the demands of a fragmented ego, but from a place of peace, integrity, and wisdom. Each stage of the process, the confrontation with the shadow, the recognition of archetypes, the interpretation of dreams, and the understanding of synchronicities, adds an essential piece to the puzzle of our identity. These steps not only expand our understanding of ourselves, but also help us comprehend our connection with the universe and with others. By seeing life as a tapestry of meanings and symbols, we learn to trust the messages of our unconscious and the guidance of the higher self that urges us to live in harmony with our deepest truths. The higher self represents the state of wholeness and peace that we achieve when we have integrated every aspect of our being into a coherent and authentic unity. Living from this perspective, every action we take, every word we say, and every relationship we cultivate becomes an expression of our essence. This authenticity allows us to experience an inner freedom that does not depend on external circumstances and opens us to a life of purpose and meaning. Jung underscores that the journey toward the higher self is both a personal and collective endeavor. Each individual who embarks on this path contributes to the healing of the collective unconscious, elevating humanity's consciousness as a whole. By confronting and integrating our own archetypes and shadows, we not only liberate ourselves from destructive behavioral patterns, but also pave the way for future generations to inherit a collective unconscious that is more conscious and less burdened by traumas and unresolved conflicts. Jung also reminds us that connecting with the higher self is not a final destination but an ongoing process of discovery and growth. Life continually presents new challenges and opportunities to deepen this connection, urging us to engage in a dynamic relationship with our innermost being and the universe. The higher self is not a static goal to achieve, but a living, guiding presence that illuminates our path, helping us remember who we truly are and our unique purpose in this world. Living in alignment with the higher self is an act of profound love and respect, for ourselves, for others, and for life itself, turning each day into an opportunity to embody our highest potential. Ultimately, the path to the higher self invites us to live with greater awareness, authenticity, and fulfillment, where every experience holds meaning and every connection fosters growth. This is Jung's enduring legacy, a vision of humanity capable of finding peace, purpose, and a profound connection with the divine by courageously exploring and embracing the depths of the psyche.